We are here this morning to talk about the Unharmable movement, all the stuff we've been doing around Unharmable, specifically with the course that we launched earlier this week. And so we waited a few days to get on here and talk about the course just to make sure there weren't any kinks we had to work out. And so now that it's been up for almost a week, we really want to share what we're up to with that. So that's why we're here. TJ, anything to add?
No, thank you, Jeremy. I'm just grateful for everyone who's watching live right now. We've been working on this course and we're really excited to tell you about it. And just a perfect course to launch into the new year. We're far enough into the new year now where we're like, how's it going with those resolutions? So I think that's really the intention for the course.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to, before we kind of get into the details of the course, to talk maybe a little bit about how it came to be and what our motivation was behind putting together an Unharmable course.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, you and I met, we met in a cafe. So we like to say what started as a conversation in a cafe has become a global movement. And that really is true because we started when you and I met. I remember just thinking there was so much synergy around two different conversations. And one of them was this idea of being unharmable. We were really talking about the treatment industry, the whole recovery movement, and what has really worked and what maybe wants to be offered as something new and fresh. That's how it started. And obviously it has expanded way beyond just someone who is in recovery or who has struggled with an addiction. But we really started a conversation about why, or what is it about our friends, our colleagues, our family members? Why are we all walking around with this belief in our own brokenness? Why do we have these core false beliefs about ourselves? And more importantly than the why, what can we do about it? So that's really the origin of the Unharmable movement several years ago. And that has become, I think, for you and I, our purpose on who and what we've come here to be and what we can offer the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think, in our conversations and on so many of our lives that we've done on Facebook and even conversations we've had with other thought leaders and professionals in the field, the thing that comes up for me the most is that a lot of people really resonate with the message of Unharmable and Unharmed and all the principles of conscious recovery and conscious being, and a lot of people, the more familiar they become with the theoretical aspect of core false beliefs and our essential nature and our true self, and the more they become aware of these in theory, the more they're asking for, what do I do with that? And so I think, in our early conversations, what we noticed was that most of the comments on our lives and a lot of the DMs that we were getting, they were like, that sounds really great, you guys. And I totally get that. And I love that. But now what do I do? And that became really clear to us as we were speaking to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what you're speaking to is really important because I do hear people saying that same thing. It's like, okay, now I recognize that there's a part of me that feels broken. And I also recognize there's this place within me that regardless of what has happened is unharmed and unharmable. And those two moments, recognizing those, because in my own journey, I felt broken to my core. And I also was pretty unaware of the core false beliefs that were running the show. So as you said, once people become aware of that, that's great. And that's an important first step. Then comes the question, now what? Okay, so now I recognize this. What on earth do we do with it? And this is exactly why we started not only the movement, but created this course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the tie-in that we've created between what it is to be unharmable, this place within us that is whole and complete, and our core false beliefs, the things that we hold true about ourselves, that we think are true about ourselves, but deep down, we know that they are false. And that's a really important thing to note, is that when in almost all of my clinical work, people, when I ask them, what kind of thoughts do you hold about yourself, they will start naming these things that they believe so deeply as deep truths. Excuse me. So they'll say, I'm not good enough to be in a healthy relationship. I'm not worthy of love from my family. And the way they're telling me these things is as though they are inherently true. And what I love about conscious recovery and unharmable is that just in the name, when we put a name to that, the key word there is false. And I love that you bring so much attention to the fact that, yes, we may believe these things, and let's hold space for the fact that they are not true of who we truly are.
Who we truly are, right? And it's so interesting looking at it just with the hashtag alone. I was shocked that no one had ever used the hashtag core false beliefs. People use core beliefs. And even though to you and I, you and me, you and I both understand that the beliefs are false, but I've worked with clients who say, what if they're true? Mm-hmm. What if it is true that I'm unworthy? What if it is true that I'm unlovable? And I'm not going to go too deeply into the conversation now because we go into it in the course, but just very simply said, when I'm holding a core belief and I'm believing it to be true, and there's a frequency attached to that, then it creates the evidence to support it. So we're going to really talk about how to unravel that, right? It's mm-hmm. not just as simple as, oh, I recognize that I have this belief that I'm stupid and I'm going to change that thought. Yes, that's true. And so I love that you're pointing to the word false because it's so important. Many mm-hmm. of us believe we are our thoughts, we are our past, we are our trauma. And I could keep listing, but when we recognize there's some place within us that has never been harmed by that, then we move into a new way of working with it.
Yep, beautiful. And so maybe I'm going to share my screen and give everybody watching a little bit of an overview of the course. We're not going to go too deep into each module, but I thought it would be really fun and helpful to our viewers if maybe we walk through the modules and just kind of talk about why we came to those as kind of the key points that we wanted to cover. So let me go ahead and pull that up.
Yeah, thank you. And for anyone watching right now, what our intention is to give you an overview of what you can expect in the course, and then see if it feels like something that you are called to join us in. We've made the course we hope, very accessible from a price standpoint, and also very accessible in terms of the amount of content. So, it's not going to take you 6 months to get through this. We just want to give you some tools to start breaking the cycle of believing in your brokenness.
That's right. Yeah. And so we start with a welcome from TJ Woodward. So these are all video modules, which we took a pretty good amount of time with. And so we welcome everybody to the course and to the concept of this place that is unharmed and unharmable. And it is a very warm welcome. And we get into a lot of the theory of core false beliefs and the sentiment around unharmability. And so, TJ, maybe we could start first with what is the relation between unharmable and core false beliefs?
Well, when we come into this world, we come into the world as a whole and perfect spiritual being, and then we get programmed to believe that we're broken in some way. We also get programmed to believe that we are our thoughts or we are our past. And so the relationship between the two is, for me, I did at some point recognize that I was carrying around these core beliefs about myself. And then I noticed I didn't say false because I was believing them. And then when I began to recognize that they actually were lies that I had picked up, I also recognized that in itself, or life happened and I separated from my true nature and started to believe I was my traumatic experiences, or I was what happened to me, or I was my behavior. And so the relationship is profoundly simple. There's a place within us that's whole and perfect. We come into a world that teaches us all sorts of things that are counter to that truth. We separate from that and we start to believe the lie instead of the truth in our wholeness and perfection. So that's very simply the relationship between the two.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. And I think that's what had me so fired up about this course, was that it is very language focused. So we're very specific in our languaging and with the lessons that accompany the videos. And I think that that's a great tie-in between the two. Now, you guys will notice that we start with the origins of core false beliefs. So TJ, why did we start it with where core false beliefs come from?
Well, instead of trying to work with what's happening in our lives now, we recognize that it's important to look back at the origins. Where did this originate? When did I first start believing that I wasn't enough? When did I start believing I was unlovable? Because what we're coming to understand is that these core false beliefs are trapped in the unconscious. They're a frequency, they're a vibration. So we don't fix it, and I'm using air quotes because we're not broken, so we don't need to be fixed, but we don't heal that if we're only working in real time, trying to change the narrative. We hear that a lot. Shifting our mindset, mind hack, that's all really popular now. We know it's important to get back to the origins of it so that we can start to heal the original times that we started believing it, so that we can move out of those core false beliefs.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's perfect. And so within each module, I should note that there are multiple sections. So within each, it's not just kind of one message and that's that. Each module has essentially 2 to 5 sections within it. And there is a guide that you can download to accompany your course that includes a lot of exercises, journaling, further reading on each concept. That way, as you're watching the video, you can pause the video and consult your resource guide, which will have a lot more information and exercises that we invite people to do along with the videos for each module. So after module 1, we cruise into the impact of core false beliefs. And TJ, what can they expect from that?
Just simply a recognition of what gets created when I believe this to be true. In my own life, I believed I was unlovable. So the impact of that was I kept finding myself in relationships, no matter how hard I tried to change my communication, to open up to new people, to remove toxic relationships. That's another really popular one now. Until I got down and recognized that because I was carrying the belief I was unlovable, I kept choosing relationships. And this is very unconscious. I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, let me find the biggest loser in the room so that I can prove to myself that I'm unlovable. Now I'm using that language very consciously. Today, I don't call people losers, but in my mind back then, I was all about the outer focus. Let me find someone that's more available. Why do I keep attracting unavailable men? That was for me. Or work relationships. And this invites us to look at what is the deep impact in our life of carrying these core beliefs. And very simply said, what does it create in my life when I believe it?
Perfect. And so then the last official module is the way to your wholeness. And this is personally my favorite because this is where a lot of the practical application comes in. And it is the longest of all the modules. And it's packed full of real life examples, practical exercises, a lot of different healing modalities that TJ brings in. And to me, even when I was editing this video, I was personally getting so much out of it because so often culturally we're expecting the answer to be an external action. And a lot of times when we're talking about inner work, that doesn't necessarily have as much impact. And so the reason I love this third module is because it is practical, it is work, but it's internal. and it's so meaningful and deep and compassionate that I think this is the one that people are going to be the most excited about.
Well, thank you. And it's, again, it's in some ways it's so simple because I think a lot of us are yearning for or longing for a sense of connection.
Mm-hmm.
We often try to connect externally, of course, and that is an important part of life. What we're exploring in this module is, what if there is this place that is within you that's unharmable, and that it's really about the layers that we've built on top of that that have prevented us from knowing our own essential goodness, if you will, or our own true nature. So there's a lot of how-to in this. Jeremy, you and I have a common friend that said, okay, great, I recognize I have these core false beliefs, but what the heck do I do with them? And that's what we're exploring in this. And we're looking at the way to return to our wholeness. This isn't about fixing ourselves because we're not broken. This isn't about developing all these new strategies. It's really looking at tools to unlearn and return. So that's the key to the course. We're going to unlearn and we're going to return to the truth of who and what we are.
Perfect. And then last but certainly not least, we have this bonus module here. And this is a really exciting one because we actually had our colleague, Dr. Adriana Popescu, join us for a conversation around core false beliefs, this place within us that's unharmed and unharmable. And it was so much fun having her in conversation with us because it's another voice and other perspectives, and a lot of her own experience in working with people through those core false beliefs, returning them to that sense of wholeness. And anytime we're hanging out with Adriana, it is just a blast. And so I think people are going to get a ton of value out of that conversation with us.
Yeah, Jeremy, you and I really feel strongly about partnering with people, having these amazing conversations with different thought leaders. Adriana is someone who I've collaborated with for a decade now. Well, actually, it really legitimately is a decade now. We've worked together in different treatment programs. She's the co-author of my 2 workbooks. She's going to be co-authoring the 3rd workbook that's coming out this year. And she's someone that's just an incredible, effervescent being of light that brings, there's kind of a yin and yang experience when she and I are in conversation, and it's very fun because in some ways we come from slightly different places in the way we talk about this, but we also land in the same place, and that is, what are the infinite possibilities in our life when we recognize that we're actually not broken? And one of her ideas for a book is, what if you're not as blanked up as you think you are? She'll actually use the word, but I'm not going to. And so that's why I love collaborating with her. And yes, it was a fun conversation. I need to watch it though, because I have no idea what we said.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And so so this is the overview of the course, everyone. So we will attach a link to this post once we're done with the live, and you can also go to unharmable.com and click get the course. It's a button in the menu and it'll bring you here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share on that, but that's what it looks like. Those are the different modules that we put together for everybody. And I'm personally really excited. And just to note, TJ, like you mentioned in the beginning of the show, our goal was to make this really accessible. So you can get the course for $50. We put a lot of hours into it. We have the resource guide that accompanies it, and we felt like $50 was a really nice entry point for people. That price might change as we go, so we're hoping to get a lot of people in now before any of that fluctuates. So, yeah, TJ, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, all I want to say, I guess, in closing is there's 2 things. One is please help us spread this movement of unharmability. Use the hashtag unharmable and direct people to the website, because we really want to create a movement, and we are creating a movement around this very simple and yet very profound concept of, what if there's a place within you that's whole and perfect? So thank you for helping us spread the word. And then, the other thing I want to say is, if no one's told you today, you are a whole and perfect being just the way you are.